To go all the way, and two fantastic players here. Unfortunately, down the losers, pretty much guaranteed to give us a really good game.
Absolutely. I'm looking at these teams already, and I'm getting super excited about them, especially because on Donald's team, you've got Glastrier, Urshifu, Zapdos, Porygon 2, Grimmsnarl, and Amoonguss. And for Federico, you've got Kartana, Galarian Moltres, Tapu Fini, Stakataka, Cresselia, and Raichu.
Two teams definitely pulling on new things from the Crown Tundra expansion. Of course, Glastrier, we've talked about enough already today. Definitely going to be a focal point of Donald's team. And Federico there with the Galarian Moltres, something a little bit different. Not as many people picking up on it, but those players who have, and those players who firmly believe in it, really do think it can swing matchups in their way. Both players have options to really slow the game down a lot and control the speeds. You know, plenty of Trick Room options available on both sides and ways to set that up very effectively as well. And in the case of Donald as well, Grimmsnarl can really slow the game down with some of those screens that, without the access to Brick Break, which not many people are, you know, even looking at yet, and just trying to play through it, are just going to remain on the field and be a problem.
Well, I'm super excited to talk about both of these players a little bit more in depth, especially because Donald Smith is one of those players that has really had a standout performance in the 2020 year, especially because I believe that was their first competitive year for Pokemon as well, if I'm not mistaken. And already right out the gate with a Collinsville Regional Top 32 placement, I feel like is a pretty good way to start. Yeah,
I mean, that's his first regional and first like a big cut for him there, so a really good performance. He does have experience in other competitive games, so probably trying to translate that over a little bit, being able to say, well, you know, I can apply the logic to one game, I can then be a top finisher in another game as well. So finding that competitive drive over in Pokemon rather than some of his previous endeavors. That said, he's going up against somebody with a whole lot of history in the game in Federico Turano. You know, world's top finishers, a top 8 in 2018, a top 32 in 2017. And in the build-up to that, you know, winning regionals and nationals in Argentina, you can see across, you know, 2015, 16, 17, 18, growing a little bit more. A regional, then a nationals, then a cut at worlds, then a top 8. So, you know, definitely growing every year and going a little bit further in every tournament he plays.
Yeah, really great performances from both of these players, but definitely looking to make a big name for themselves here in the Players' Cup too. But oh my goodness, this is going to be such an exciting match. I mean, we say that a lot, but I'm really genuinely like super pumped about this one just because of the fact that it's these two players that are battling it out. It's a losers round match, and of course, all the Pokemon that are on these teams, I feel like is just going to make it a really exciting one.
Oh, most definitely. And yes, every game is exciting when it's the Players' Cup grand finals for, you know, around the globe. And you know, we're getting players that usually we get treated once a year to see these kind of regions play, or at least some of these matchups, and we're getting it more and more now. So definitely exciting. You know, we wait for internationals to get these kind of matchups, and now we're getting them in the Players' Cup. So a lot of good games, and I'm sure this is going to be another one of them.
Well, let's go ahead and jump right into the action, shall we? And see exactly how this game number one is going to unfold between both of these players. You've got Donald Smith, Federico Turano, and for Federico, already going to be bringing out Cresselia and Raichu versus the Grimmsnarl and the Glastrier on Donald's side of the field.
Grimmsnarl and Glastrier, a pairing that has been talked about a lot already, especially approaching the global finals here for Players' Cup too. A lot of people picking up on it. Setting up screens, keeping Glastrier safe. Raichu, a Pokemon with a couple of appearances across the top 16 here, and something that has maybe shocked me a little bit in how well it's been doing. You know, that said, Cresselia, Pokemon I'm a big fan of. Nice to see that getting another outing, and Federico's certainly a fan of it. With the history he has with the game, he's seen it be phenomenal in the past, and Raichu showing off one of its tricks to start out this game.
Oh yeah, Charm, not a move that you see too often on a Raichu, but definitely something that's going to be super effective when it comes to this particular matchup, as Buster is going to go for the high horsepower now, doubling into the Raichu. We'll be able to knock it out, but that's kind of the important part about Donald's use of using the Grimmsnarl first and then the Glastrier being able to move second, is the fact that you do get that chilling Nay boost on that Glastrier, as Cresselia for Federico goes for Trick Room.
Cresselia very much valuing the Trick Room, but you're against an opposing Glastrier, so there must be something in his team that he is confident is going to be able to come in and promptly deal with that before it takes advantage of that chilling Nay, and maybe tries to get another one as well to help out there and kind of keep on going. Setting up a Trick Room in front of an opposing Glastrier is a bold move, and I think bringing in Stack Attacker is probably one of the better answers that Federico could have. Stack Attacker and Cresselia together are a very tough combination to work through. Very bulky, very defensive, but able to really kind of control the field when needed to.
Yeah, you can see that Donald's already looking at kind of being able to set up a little bit with that Grimmsnarl, as it's Pokemon that's been on a couple of different teams now in the global finals. You get a chance to see why it's so good, especially because of our last set where we got a chance to see the light screen being able to be super effective. It will be the Reflect this time around just to be able to kind of get things set up. But first things first, we've got to deal with a couple of switches here, as Cresselia now, after setting up the Trick Room for its partner Stakataka, is going to bring out the Tapu Fini in its place. We'll set up the Misty Terrain for the field, and now it's about what is going to happen for the rest of these Pokemon.
Both trainers here probably trying to carve out a big advantage. They've got Trick Room up, and they've both got Pokemon that really want to take advantage of the Trick Room, so no shocks to see Dynamaxes being selected on both sides. The Stack Attacker, you know, definitely a good candidate on Federico's side, a Pokemon that is known for just being very, very defensive, but now with max moves can apply a little bit more pressure. And Donald, unsurprisingly, we see it a lot, given the benefit of Dynamax, getting his Glastrier in a good position to try and kind of sweep through the game, get more Chilling Naze activated, and push on.
Well, it already has that one boost already from knocking out that Raichu very early on. So this is a pretty good position for this Glastrier to be in, as Grimmsnarl does go for the Reflect here, as we saw during that move preview, to be able to just be able to keep things a little bit safer against the Stakataka. But here comes this Max Steel Spike, and even with the Reflect up, but that's going to be a one-hit knockout here onto that Grimmsnarl on Donald's side. Yep,
the Glastrier being left well alone, and quite an interesting choice there from Stakataka to get the knockout there. Gets obviously the defense boost from the Steel Spike, and it gets the defense boost from its Beast Boost and getting that knockout, so it's going to be able to handle this Max Knuckle a whole lot better. Look at that, just being able to find an advantage and say, well, you know what, you're boosting your attack, I'm just going to start boosting my defense, and we'll keep the playing field nice and level.
Yeah, this isn't kind of one of those, it's not a weather war and it's not a speed war, it's a defense war now. And it's all about making sure that you've got the right amount of attack versus the amount of defense that's going to be on the other field. But I feel like that means we're kind of in for a little bit of a slower paced game when it comes down to it, because you're constantly looking at jockeying for position before you start to secure those big knockouts.
Definitely, and this Stack Attacker, if it can keep doing that combo of a knockout along with a max, or from a max Steel Spike, that allows it to then say, well, you know what, I get a defense boost of Beast Boost from the knockout as well, could be quite problematic. On the same vein, though, you obviously want to try and Steel Spike something like the Glastrier, and the Amoonguss is going to put a stop to that. The Rage Powder is going to be a huge issue in this turn, and this Glastrier could struggle actually to capitalize off that. So it's a tough position, I think, for Donald. But also, you know, Federico still has to play very, very smart and play around exactly what he needs. I mean, he's got no real answer to the Amoonguss. He does still have the Misty Terrain, which is certainly going to help out in this matchup and limit what it can do. I think Rage Powder is probably the premium option here.
Yeah, Rage Powder right now is going to draw the attention away, especially from that Max Steel Spike coming up from Federico's Stakataka. So Amoonguss already being brought down to below half health, as we are going to see yet another defensive boost go onto that Stakataka. That makes 3 so far for that Stakataka, as Glastrier goes for yet another Max Knuckle with a +2 attack boost here, but it's still not doing very much damage. Even though you do have a limited base power for your Max Knuckle moves, and you've got the +2 attack boost, it's still doing very, very little here, as Tapu Fini is free to go for Calm Mind.
This is going to be a real setup end game from Federico here, and he's absorbing the pressure so well. These Steel Spikes, getting those defense boosts, you know, making sure that you're in a good position to try and fight back, or at least take the hits and then slowly whittle them away. This Tapu Fini setting up a Calm Mind, good for the defense and good for the offense when the time comes. When that Trick Room expires, that's going to be when you want to then start using the Tapu Fini a little more offensively. But Stakataka eating up those Max Knuckles for breakfast is so impressive, and probably something that Federico's thought about in training. It does have a naturally very high defense anyway, but he's definitely committed to that, I think, over the course of selecting and training his team for this tournament.
Absolutely. You can see that firsthand, how incredibly stalwart this Stakataka is really being, as it's going to fire off a Max Steel Spike, this time into Donald's Glastrier, which is not actually packing a weakness policy like we see on a lot of Glastrier sets. In fact, it's carrying a Lumberry, which is very different and very unique to seeing some of these Glastrier sets. So it's safe on Federico's side to be able to go for these super effective moves, as it has been for Donald to go for these super effective moves into this Stakataka, which is not carrying a weakness policy either.
No, I mean, they can just fire off super effective moves, but the damage from both sides is decidedly underwhelming, if you ask me. I mean, it's not getting close to knockouts on either side, so both trainers trying to find a little bit more, but that's credit to both of them, right? They've both tried to set up as much as they can with boosts, and they've kind of just matched each other and held each other very much at a stalemate right now. So, you know, defense boosts on both your Pokemon from the Max Steel Spike definitely limits the potential kind of closing out power that this Glastrier often has, and with the Trick Room still in play, you know, the Stakataka gets another chance to go after it and try and weave in a knockout there as well.
Yeah, especially with Body Press as one of its big moves here. Oh no, Porygon 2 is gonna go down just like that. The Body Press being able to do so much work there, and now Stakataka is going to have, I believe, a +5 defense boost now, even though it is going to take some Life Orb recoil. High Horsepower now firing back from the Glastrier is going to be able to do that last little sliver of damage to that Stakataka, but I just feel like the damage has already been done so far. Glastrier's Chilling Neigh is going to activate, but this Tapu Fini's been sitting on the field for all of these defensive boosts. Yeah,
the Tapu Fini's been, you know, taking complete advantage of them and bringing the Glastrier really, really low with that Moonblast. Perfect time when the Trick Room runs out. Really kind of good game management here from Federico. And, you know, it's a tough loss to lose your Porygon that quickly. Yes, your Amoonguss can buy some time, and I think that's going to be really, really important here. But, you know, you got to be careful of spread moves. You got to be careful of Glastrier just getting caught out, and this Tapu Fini, you know, causing a lot of problems, I think, especially now the Trick Room is done.
Trick Room should be able to come back up if this Spore is able to land. Now, what's super interesting is that even though Tapu Fini is on the field, can go for a Muddy Water here, which is going to go into the Protect of that Glastrier and connect with this Amoonguss. But because most Cresselia have that Levitate ability, it's not actually touching the Misty Terrain. So Cresselia might not be very safe from this Spore that's going to be coming out from this Amoonguss.
Yeah, the Amoonguss just going for it and saying, all right, you don't get the advantage of the terrain. I'll put you to sleep now. It didn't actually try and set up the Trick Room, which is very, very, you know, wise here. Just making sure the Glastrier is going to be moving after. And now the Misty Terrain's expired. Of course, it is the last two Pokemon over on Federico's side, so he can't switch out and reset that. But on the same vein, Amoonguss can't switch out and reset any kind of tricks that have been going on with its regenerator as well. So both trainers down to the last two. It's going to be really close, and I think come down to who actually wakes up in time to get down that damage that they need. Glastrier is being so safe here, though.
I mean, double protect, that's pretty big here. Being able to save itself from one more turn. Cresselia is going to be taking its mandatory turn of sleep here, but that means Amoonguss is free to go for another Spore, and now that the Misty Terrain has expired, so Tapu Fini is going to get put to sleep too, and that's exactly what Donald was hoping for with that double protect coming through from the Glastrier.
Right, that double protect is massive and has now opened up so many options to allow this Glastrier to at least make an attempt to attack, and it's got its boosts to its attack, but it doesn't face down the same kind of wall that the Cresselia could be with potential defense boosts from something like the Max Steel Spike. So Cresselia, though, waking up immediately. Ooh, waking up and just trying to cause chaos here.
Ally switch now coming through, switching places with the Tapu Fini that's on the field, as Glastrier's going to go for the high horsepower, and that means that Tapu Fini is not going to take it. It's going to be Cresselia, and the Sludge Bomb now going into the Cresselia as well. That's definitely not the targeting that Donald wanted in that last turn.
No, you do not want to be throwing out your high horsepowers into levitating Pokemon. You know, you got the better of it because it was levitating when you wanted to land the Spore. And that was great. You won on the Misty Terrain. But then you get caught by the Ally Switch afterwards. So a really big wake up into immediate Ally Switch there from Federico. And now Donald, you know, he has to be careful and think cautiously about what he does. if he decides to try and throw out spores and other such moves. But Cresselia just going on the offense now and saying, I'm awake, I've got to deal damage.
Yeah, well, Glastrier will be able to connect this time around with an Icicle Crash into the Cresselia, which actually does a decent amount of damage there, as Amoonguss is going to just kind of try to go for the Sludge Bomb into Tapu Fini while it's still asleep, but the Reflect is now over. That means that any sort of damaging move coming out from Cresselia or Tapu Fini should be enough to finish off this Glastrier and Amoonguss.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you just need to land attacks now if you're Federico and make sure they go into the right targets. That Cresselia showing off why it's always a popular pick in BGC. It's so bulky. It's so hard to deal with. And this Amoonguss is going to start buying some time for itself as well. Tapu Fini remaining asleep is going to become a bit of a problem.
Yeah, but that Protect was so smart from Donald, because this allows now Glastrier to go for yet another Icicle Crash. It should be enough to be able to secure the knockout here based on how much damage was coming out from that other turn before. And that is going to be a knockout here, and yet another boost coming out from Chilling Neigh. But this Tapu Fini has been on the field the entire time next to that Stakataka, getting those defensive boosts. So this is still a precarious position for Donald to be in.
Yeah, it's got the defense boost, and don't forget it also worked in a Calm Mind as soon as it took the field, so it's got a little bit of a way to kind of answer and deal with that Amoonguss and take those hits really, really well. Of course, Glastrier does have a huge amount of damage available to it, but it's going to be causing all kinds of problems. That said, Muddy Water gets the target it needed the most in the Glastrier there.
Yeah, I did miss the Amoonguss, so Amoonguss is going to be able to fire back with a Sludge Bomb, but we saw how little damage that really did. It's still going to be a 3-hit knockout here to be able to take out that Tapu Fini. So Donald at this point is really hoping that maybe you can put it to sleep. Maybe there's going to be yet another Muddy Water miss, maybe? Moonblast, though.
Yeah, you need a Muddy Water miss, and that's your only option here for Donald. And the Amoonguss is going to get felled and call time on what was a very well drawn out game by both players. Both players identifying where their win conditions were, identifying how they had to play out and get ready for the end of the game.
Let's just jump right into the action and see exactly how this one's going to go, because boy, oh boy, that was an exciting game number 1, and we're already seeing a little bit of the same coming out from game number 2. At least from Federico's side of the field, you will have that Cresselia and that Raichu on the field, but now it's Zapdos and Grimmsnarl coming out from Donald, which I feel like is just a little bit of a different adaptation here that Donald might have been missing, just having a little bit more offensive pressure in the front.
I like this lead, but it's a tough one to take against the Raichu, right? Like we've talked about it earlier today, that, you know, something like a Zapdos wants to hit electric type attacks and not going to be able to do that so easily with the Raichu in play. That said, you know, your Grimmsnarl doesn't get charmed, or Grimmsnarl, your Glastrier, sorry, doesn't get charmed in turn number 1. So this game could be a little bit different, I think, for Donald if he's able to maybe deal with the Raichu a little bit more effectively and play through the early portion of the game and carve out a slightly bigger advantage than he previously had.
Yeah, Zapdos doesn't want to make any mistakes here. So going to be bringing out Porygon 2 in its stead. So taking a look at what's going to happen for the rest of this turn, it's not going to be very much, because there's going to be a fake out onto the Grimmsnarl, and Cresselia just going for a Trick Room here. Really nice setup here coming out from Federico. Yeah,
very smart. Just setting up his Trick Room for himself, making sure that his potential stack attacker in the back is going to be able to come in and cause problems that way. But what's curious about this game is he set up the Trick Room and didn't lose his Raichu. So the Raichu's kind of sat on the field in a Trick Room, which is not where premium position is. And you've got to try and weave in something like a switch to stack attacker. Now that switch is fine, but the longer you spend not attacking, you're A, wasting turns of Trick Room, and B, you're letting this Grimmsnarl set up reflects and light screens. That's a problem. They're going to go up at some point, and you've got no way to stop them. You know, if you keep switching around, it may be able to set up both, which could be an even bigger problem later in the game.
Yeah, you definitely want to look at Reflect and Light Screen being a powerful force for Donald's side of the field, but Volt Switch now coming through for the Raichu. Will be able to do a little bit of damage to Donald's Grimmsnarl, but most importantly, it gives Federico a chance to pivot away from the Raichu being on the field, which you astutely mentioned is kind of a problem here, especially in the Trick Room. But Cresselia likes to be in the Trick Room, but the Trick Room is no more. You saw Donald go ahead and go for the Trick Room reverse, so we're back to normal on the battlefield.
Nah, this is going to be one of those games where both trainers have a different opinion on whether Trick Room is going to be for them, and they probably want it at different times of the game. Obviously, Federico wants it now because he has his stack attacker on the field, but Donald wants it a little bit later when it comes down to getting his Glastrier into play and sweeping through the end of the game like that. So a smart play, I think, from Donald to just reverse the Trick Room. Looked like it was going to be very, very free. The stack attacker switch was a little bit telegraphed there and was able to capitalize off that. So yeah, more time with the Grimmsnarl to set up some screens, lower some stats. Do whatever you want to do, really, if you're this Grimmsnarl, and try and help out as best you can. But Donald, you know, changing up exactly what's going to be his Dynamax choice in this game. Really pushing on and saying, you know what, I think Porygon is needed to Dynamax here, and probably try and apply some pressure. Maybe try and find a cheeky way to stop the Trick Room going up.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that that double target into the Cresselia. As long as there isn't something like an ally switch that comes out, that could be pretty detrimental to Federico's game plan. But it's time to Dynamax on Federico's side of the field, as well as we do see the Dynamax factor matched by this Stakataka that's going to become large and in charge for this match.
Most definitely. I mean, the Stakataka trying to get its boosts and get as much damage down as possible. You called it. There's the ally switch landing from the Cresselia. I mean, the landing, it doesn't exactly miss. But I kind of like this double target because it just says, you know what, like, whatever you have in that slot, I'm going to try and knock out, right?
Yeah. I still think that Donald was really hoping that it was going to be the Cresselia, just because that Max Phantasm is going to be super effective against it, not necessarily against that Stakataka. But you do get the defense drop here, so anything else that's going to be coming out from either of these Pokemon should be able to deal some pretty significant damage and also mitigate some of those defensive boosts that you will see come through from both the Max Steel Spikes that we just saw, as well as the Beast Boost from that Stakataka knocking out a Pokemon.
That stack attack is still going to be net positive at the end of the turn, though, getting a boost from both Beast Boost and Max Steel Spike. Absolutely fine. And that damage output, every time you see a Porygon 2 Dynamax, the damage output just seems a little bit low and a little bit kind of troublesome here. So maybe having to mix it up a little bit, try and find some options here. And yeah, there's no Trick Room set up, so this stack attack is a little vulnerable. But this, you know, this Glastrier is going to be able to try and apply some pressure on that, especially while the Trick Room's not up, because that was the problem in game number 1, right? Was Stakataka was getting the defense boost before. Now there's no Trick Room. It can try and play this one a little bit differently.
Right. I like that we do see the Glastrier coming out onto the field here. Because Trick Room isn't active just yet, Glastrier should be able to clean up whatever is going to get double targeted here, potentially to be able to get that Chilling Neigh, but we are going to see the Max Guard come out from Stakataka first. But Porygon 2 went after this Cresselia, so here comes the Max Phantasm. It's not going to do a lot of damage here, but it's still going to drop those defenses on both of these Pokemon, and maybe this Icicle Crash is going to be enough, but it avoided the attack.
Ooh. Yeah, not landing that Icicle Crash is huge, and that means that's a lovely little Trick Room set up there for Cresselia. The Stack Attacker kept itself safe, did exactly what it needed to do for kind of this turn, and yeah, it's definitely not the easiest situation to be in the world.
Looking at that Max Phantasm versus Max Strike, I mean, Max Phantasm wasn't enough that it was going to be able to knock out the Cresselia, but maybe now, maybe after those defense, well, now that we're at neutral here, without the defense boost coming in from the Max Steel Spikes, maybe that's going to be enough now to be able to knock it out. But Trick Room is active, Cresselia and Stack Attacker are going to be moving very fast, so it just kind of all depends on how Federico decides to play with this Trick Room.
Federico's got to capitalize on this. He's got to get the most out of these Trick Room turns and do the absolute best he can. I think adjusting his board position for Donald, absolutely fine here, and probably very wise to try and help out a little bit.
We've got Max Steel Spike now coming out right into the Zapdos, which is going to do about half damage to it as it does get switched in. But let's see what happens now, because I feel like this is where we get a chance to really see whether or not this is going to be enough. This is what I was super excited for. And Cresselia is still going to be able to hang on throughout all of that damage that's come through, all of those defensive drops, that max steel spike being super, super effective at keeping this Cresselia around to continue to play those ally switch mind games. This is definitely a precarious spot, but I really appreciate that Donald in this moment is still sticking to his game plan. He knows what he wants to do, he knows how he has to approach this game, and he's not letting the ally switch or anything else really stand in his way.
No, he's just playing the game and keeping to what he knows and what he's learned from game number 1 of his way to move around these teams. So it's definitely a treacherous position for both players. I think they're trying to carve out very fine advantages and then grow that advantage with extra boosts or extra damage where they shouldn't usually be able to sneak it in. So really kind of slow, steady, methodical, and well thought out gameplay, especially for Donald, who, you know, if he loses this one, is out of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, same for Federico. If, you know, Donald's able to even the score and we go into a game number 3, then it's both players' tournament lives on the line. But we will see Rock Slide come out. Zapdos is going to keep itself safe from that protect as Porygon 2 goes for a Shadow Ball into the Stakataka, which is going to be enough to knock it out here. So Stakataka is now down for the count and will not be able to continue to get those Beast Boosts in this game. But that leaves Federico still with the Raichu in the back against the Zapdos, as well as that potential 4th and final Pokemon, which is going to be that Tapu Fini.
Yeah, exactly the same 4 that he bought in game number 1 and managed to carve out an advantage with. But I think he got a lot more value out the Stakataka in that first game than he has here in game number 2. So it's certainly a different look for both players. You know, a change in Pokemon and a change in board position, respectively, between Donald and Federico. So certainly an interesting one. But now that Zapdos is on the field, it just has to try and kind of find the advantage and maybe force the Raichu out a little bit early and catch it with something on the way in, or allow the Porygon to catch it.
Well, some switches going to be coming through here. First, it's going to be the Cresselia leaving the field for Federico in place of that Raichu. And Zapdos now leaving the field as well. Definitely maybe predicting that switch a little bit. Doesn't want to play with the Zapdos too much when there's still the threat of that Raichu. So Tri-Attack now going into that slot will be able to do a decent amount of damage there. But Tapu Fini's still free again to get this Calm Mind up. And that's what spelled disaster last time for Donald.
This is something that I think Federico is really being smart about, is setting up this Calm Mind kind of freely every time this Tapu Fini's in. I like the switch into the Raichu, but I also really like the switch out of the Zapdos. It's very respectful of the potential Raichu coming in and saying, look, I know the Raichu's low on health, let me deal with that first, then I'll be able to play with Zapdos at the end of the game, and maybe try and work through this Tapu Fini a little bit easier. But the longer you spend, you know, with your Zapdos forced away by the Raichu, the more potential time there is to set up Calm Minds and be able to take Thunderbolts a whole lot easier. So a lot to think about as we approach the end game. We're still very much in this mid-game adjusting and trying to make sure you're in the premium end game position here. But, you know, switching these two around, the Raichu and the Cresselia, very nice switch when you know that there's high horsepower available for Glastrier.
Right, Cresselia was still super low though, and I think that Donald going for the Icicle Crash instead of something like that high horsepower was really smart, just because it covers the potential switch in from that Levitate Cresselia. But Tapu Fini now, after it did get the Calm Mind boost, goes for the Muddy Water and misses the Glastrier though. So Glastrier is going to be still sitting pretty for this next couple of turns. And now the Trick Room is over and there's no Cresselia left on the field.
Right, this Glastrier should be in a pretty solid position to try and, I think, tidy up the game as best it can. It's not going to take too much damage from this Tapu Fini. There's nothing kind of super effective that Tapu Fini can hit it with. And even with the Calm Mind is still going to struggle. So Glastrier's job right now is deal with Raichu. As soon as Raichu's dealt with, you bring your Zapdos in and you can close out the game here if you're Donald. So a nice kind of well thought out end game, and those switches earlier on to save the Zapdos are looking to be very, very important.
Preserving Zapdos, preserving your big damage dealers till the end, that's something that a lot of these players in the global finals have been doing a fantastic job of. Raichu now on the field, though, will be able to go for a fake out. This time the Muddy Water does connect onto both Pokemon, but it's still not enough to be able to get the knockouts. But the accuracy is continuing to drop for this Porygon 2. As Icicle Crash comes out from Glastrier, it will be enough to get the knockout onto Raichu. So now that Zapdos that's been sitting in the back for Donald is in a very safe position to come out, but I don't know if you actually need it in this position because you do have this Glastrier sitting at those boosts with that Chilling Neigh.
Chilling Neigh is now definitely a factor. You know, 2 increased stages of attack without having to use max moves as well is absolutely huge, and being able to say, look, if I hit this Tapu Fini, I'm just going to start taking knockouts here. You know, it does have to be a little bit cautious in its move selection. But if, you know, as long as it hits something, the Zapdos and the Porygon 2 should be able to weave in enough damage to try and fire back. You know, the Muddy Waters are going to land. Not even enough for the knockout on Porygon 2 here.
No, but the accuracy drops on both Pokemon, so Tri-Attack is not going to hit here. And high horsepower, that one does. So with that increased attack, it will be enough to get Tapu Fini down to its berry range, so that Wiki Berry going to be able to do a lot to refresh some of that health. And now Federico's in this position where the Muddy Water should be able to knock out the Porygon 2 as long as it doesn't miss here, and it is going to connect to both Pokemon.
Yeah, that's exactly what he needs, but he's still got to deal with this Zapdos in the back potentially, and that should just be able to come in and kind of tidy this one up. So 2 knockouts, bringing it down to a absolute photo finish between Donald and Federico here. But Zapdos against Tapu Fini, not the most pleasant a matchup. I mean, the Zapdos isn't at full health. It's definitely well under half, and could just get caught short a little bit if it just, you know, gets knocked out. But, you know, it's just 1v1 against the Tapu Fini, who doesn't have its friend Raichu to help him out and defend it here. So Donald very quickly locking in, confident, and knows what he needs to do here.
Yeah, Thunderbolt, your way to victory. Tie up this series and bring us into a game number 3. That's what's on the line right now for this series as we continue through, as we do see Zapdos go through the Thunderbolt first, and it will be enough to get the knockout. So this series all tied up 1-1 between Donald Smith Jr. and Federico Turano. Well, let's get this party started, shall we? Game number 3 for this intense set between Donald Smith Jr. and Federico Turano. It all comes down to this, the final game of the set, where shouldn't surprise you that Federico Turano continues to go with that tried and true strategy of bringing that Cresselia and that Raichu. But for this time around, Donald Smith is continuing to change things up here. Grimmsnarl next to Porygon 2. I really like this. I feel like you can just kind of hit the gas with this, or just try to knock out the Trick Room super fast before Federico gets a chance to set it up.
I've also got the option to just immediately reverse the Trick Room. We saw him in Game 2 reverse the Trick Room when he wasn't happy about it going up, so could lean into that a little bit, try and maybe play the mind game, call when he does Trick Room and immediately reverse it. And while he's not doing that, you know, try and get some damage down. Little bits of chip damage are all going to add up and help out here, even if they're from the Porygon, right? It's something he's going to need to do, I think, as one-hit knockouts are definitely few and far between against a team as bulky as Federico's, with Cresselia, Stakataka, and Tapu Fini.
But the fake tears might really help with that. I feel like that's going to really be able to kind of steal the thunder away from this team. As we do see the Volt Switch come through, which is really smart from Federico's side. You mentioned that you do need to, if you're going to set up this Trick Room, get your Trick Room user, like that Stakataka, in as quickly as possible. So that's exactly what Federico's going to do here. Bring that Stakataka in from that Volt Switch, but Porygon 2 sparring off the Shadow Ball. Is it going to be enough to knock out this Cresselia before the Trick Room goes off? And it just brings it to below half. So Cresselia getting off that Trick Room, and Federico now in a phenomenal position with that Stakataka on the field.
Yeah, you don't take out Cresselia that easily. A humble Shadow Ball from Porygon 2, even after a fake Tears, is not going to be troubling or tickling this Cresselia too much. I mean, it's definitely a little bit more than you'd like, with it just taken below half, but a fantastic turn for Federico. He gets Trick Room set up. He makes a change, because he's not threatened at all by this Grimmsnarl and Porygon lead. No threat coming out there, really. It's so defensive from Donald, and he just says, you know what? That's fine, mate. I'll just Volt Switch out. I'll save my Raichu for later, which, if the Zapdos is in the back, is going to be a huge play to have available to him. And now with stack attackers on the field against two Pokemon that really don't threaten it offensively, and may be able to just kind of cause problems by getting Steel Spikes and Beast Boost going all in one turn. We've seen the Grimmsnarl fall to these max Steel Spikes very, very early on, and I think this is just a really nice adaptation. The Tapu Fini already coming back in. Wouldn't be a shock to see it maybe try and weave in a Calm Mind, and there's the Dynamax. Stack Attacker's going for it. Stack Attacker is going to try and take over the game and get its boosts nice and early on, so it's just completely unmanageable and nigh on unplayable for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I'm looking at that Stack Attacker right now, and I'm trying to think about how Donald maneuvers around this now, especially now that you've also revealed all 4 of your Pokemon on Federico's side. You can really feel the confidence that Federico has. Reflect's going to come out here from Donald's side of the field just to be able to help against these physical max Steel Spikes that are going to be coming out from this Stack Attacker, but Grimmsnarl's already at such low health. It would have just barely hung on, maybe with that Reflect going up, but that's going to be a knockout secured for Federico's side. Tapu Fini gets the defensive boost again, setting it up for the end game with a potential Calm Mind coming out next turn, and the Beast Boost once again to help that Stack Attacker stick on the field.
So I actually think that's really smart kind of long-term gameplay, making sure the Volt Switch goes into Grimmsnarl, then knowing that you're going to be able to get the Steel Spike knockout and the Beast Boost on top of your regular defense boost already is just very, very smart, I think, from Federico to kind of pull that play off. Yes, the Reflect went up, but it's not enough when you've already taken that little bit of chip damage, and now I think Donald's going to be kind of on the chase. If he wants to get knockouts on the Stack Attacker, he needs to use something like the Zapdos. Got to be careful when you try and do that. I mean, A, Zapdos can easily get knocked out by the Stack Attacker, and B, you know, a Raichu's in the back. So this kind of board positioning he's put himself in, certainly a little bit harder. He's flicking between the two here. We can see it on his side of the screen. Neither feeling particularly premium, I think, looking at this Stack Attacker and the position it's in.
Yeah, I mean, whew, this is such a tough position to be in, just because you don't really know why. It feels almost like you have to give up something in order to take something away. And so you're in this position now that let's try to do what we can with this Glastrier, but it's still going to be so difficult with all of the defensive boosts that have already come through from the Stack Attacker. So you can see here that Donald is even looking at just Dynamaxing Porygon 2, just seeing how much it can get done with those Max Phantasms to drop the defense, and hope that's going to be enough to be able to get this Glastrier to work wonders against the Stack Attacker.
It's a big old ask, I think, to be able to kind of keep up the pace. And, you know, yes, you can drop defenses, but then there's those turns every so often where, you know, you get the double and you just get a net positive if you're the Stack Attacker, which is exactly what you want. Curious that he's decided to Dynamax the Porygon just for the defense drops. That's obviously more important to him than something like the Glastrier, which would output way more damage if it was, of course, going to be, you know, Dynamaxed itself. But with Porygon 2 on the field next to it, not able to really capitalize on potential attack boosts. So, you know, just kind of playing to his best odds, I think, for the end of this game.
Yeah, but look how little that does with the defensive boosts that have already taken place. That's so little damage that's going to be coming through onto Federico's Stack Attacker. Even this close combat going to bring it just to below half, but it's not enough. And you're giving up so much in terms of that defense and special defense drop that this Max Steel Spike is really going to hurt.
That could be just disastrous here for Donald. I mean, I understand the close combat after the Max Phantasm. You want to be able to kind of deal with it as best you can, but it already had 2 defense boosts. You weren't getting rid of those, and you just lowered your own defense. That defense then turned into, you know, a Max Steel Spike boost. Yeah, you weren't going to deal with that, but then also a Beast boost. So yeah, it's still net positive at the end of the turn, and it's already down to the last 2 for Donald here. He does reveal Zapdos in the back, and yeah, Stack Attacker's low, but Raichu is available in the back, and now things get quite dicey, I think, for Donald here. He's already down 4 Pokemon to 2, and he's got a real struggle on his hands to get through this, especially with his Porygon 2 as his choice of Dynamax.
Heat Wave could come out here. I mean, this is the problem. I feel like is You have all these defensive boosts on Federico's side, and now you're kind of staring down the Zapdos, but you can't go really for the Thunderbolt here because of the Raichu that has the Lightning Rod ability, so it's gonna take a lot to be able to make it through the defensives here. As Cresselia goes for the ally switch once again in this match. Is this going to really play a role here as Cresselia avoids the Heat Wave? But I feel like the most important bit is that Stakataka is actually going to be able to take it.
Stakataka taking it quite comfortably there, but I don't see this Max Phantasm causing enough of a problem. It's so close.
It's not enough.
Yeah, the defense is still right up there because of that turn where he handed over the double boost, and in response, Stakataka just says, no, I think I can just start taking the knockouts here to wrap up this game.
Yeah, this is gonna be a real tough one now for Donald to climb back from, especially now that he's gonna be at a huge Pokemon deficit, and Stakataka still has the Beast Boosts that are coming through, but Stakataka is going to get knocked out here, but maybe not the way that Donald was hoping that it would, especially before firing off that max Rockfall to be able to knock out Zapdos. But Porygon 2 is still sitting at full health, so maybe this game isn't over just yet.
No, I mean, the Porygon 2 just has to take 3 knockouts on its own, right? With no help from a partner. That said, Porygon 2's at full health, but the Tapu Fini's also at full health, and you know, if Federico really wants to lock this one up, he just Calm Minds once, maybe even twice, or just launches attacks now at this Porygon, and I don't see a way around it for Donald. I mean, Federico can seal up this game in so many ways. It's an uphill struggle when you are against all 3 of your opponent's remaining Pokemon. Like, yes, you got the Stakataka knocked out because of the Life Orb, but it's just not enough. And this game's been slow and steady throughout the whole set. Federico just playing it really slow towards the end, saving his Cresselia for later, and probably wants to maybe try and weave in a fake out the next turn and just kind of secure the game, because I don't think this, after the Calm Mind, this Tapu Fini is not threatened by this Porygon at all.
No, Max Phantasm is going to come out from the Porygon 2 into the Raichu. Will bring it to about half, but that's definitely not as much damage as Donald was hoping for. Maybe hoping that the Raichu would be able to get knocked out to the Sandstorm damage, but it's definitely not in that range to do so. And this Tapu Fini gets that Calm Mind.
Yeah, the Calm Mind's huge here, and that wastes as well the end of the Porygon's Dynamax. So Federico looks like he's played this game nigh on perfectly. Of course, losing the Stakataka is not the perfect 4-0 that some people decide to go for, but it's just, he's managed the board so well. You know, the Raichu's going to be able to fake out here, try and slow things down the Tapu Fini. Yeah, another Calm Mind, that's 2 boosts to your special defense. What are you going to do about it, Porygon? Even if you hit, you're hitting for no damage, and you know you can't get through as much of that as you might want. So both trainers, obviously, you know, Donald doesn't want to give it up. He does want to try and stay in the global finals as long as he possibly can. Maybe try and sneak in a critical hit somewhere that swings the game drastically back in his favor. But with Tapu Fini at near full health, Raichu, you know, still there causing distractions, this should be it for Federico as he carries on his trek in the winners or in the losers bracket. My apologies.
Yeah, Raichu even just being able to go for the Volt Switch here to deal some damage and rotate again through these Pokemon. I feel like this is so smart from Federico in the end game to be able to preserve that Cresselia for a little bit longer, be able to reverse the Trick Room or take advantage of the Trick Room, and just be such a great supportive, bulky supportive Pokemon. As Tapu Fini goes for a Moonblast, and we're about to see how much that's going to do with a double Calm Mind. The Trick Room gets a chance to go up.
Yeah, Porygon 2 trying, it's setting up the best possible conditions for itself with this Trick Room, but these Moonblasts are going to start to add up and just cause problems here from this Tapu Fini. So, you know, Donald trying to find some crazy win condition here might be a bridge too far for him, I think. Because, yeah, he has Recover. He could try and stall the game through that way, but there's only so long you can do that for, as Cresselia may have found a way to just deal with that Recover anyway.
Yeah, oh, the recover's gonna be coming through, but the helping hand, you saw it come out from Cresselia, and Tapu Fini gets a chance to go for another Moonblast here. You saw how much damage it did before, and that recover's not gonna be enough. Donald Smith Jr. with that final Moonblast is going to be knocked out, and Federico Turano moves through our losers bracket.